I would like to get started, but I was just notified of a situation with one of my team members and I am now being faced with an ethical dilemma. What happened? Jane has been stealing protected company documents to conceal her tardiness. I have warned her about showing up late, but my reporting has been lacking, so I have not sufficiently documented her tardiness issues. What are you going to do about this? Well, it would be difficult to fire her because I don't want to violate the company's standard operating procedures for terminating employees without sufficient documentation. Consequences for lack of attendance are generally program decisions since these are routine problems, but due to my lack of documentation, I don't know how to handle this dilemma. I am normally well known for my forgiving manner, but in these situations, I use a universal approach and make decisions based on what should apply in all situations for all people. Rapport between manager and subordinate should be productive and respectful, and Jane has clearly violated the employer-employee relationship and can no longer be trusted. She should be terminated immediately since this would be most fair. I don't know, Mel. I desperately need Jane to conceive my plan for implementing the new technology. Also, I prefer to use a utilitarian approach in these sorts of situations, where I weigh the pros and cons of my options. I guess we all view ethical issues differently. I think I will use the moral intensity factor to determine the appropriate consequences for Jane's actions. What is that? I must evaluate the magnitude of the consequences to figure out what the level of impact on the decision I make would mean for the team. Then, I have to figure out the social consensus to determine if other team members and members of management feel my decision is a good or bad one. Is there more? Yes. Next, I determine the probability of effect to see if my preferred decision would be likely to happen or not. The fourth component of moral intensity is to determine the temporal immediacy, which will explain the time between when the action occurred and when the consequence will take place. After that, I will figure out the proximity of my decision by determining how it will make others feel that are also being affected by the decision. For example, if I were to fire Jane for her actions, how will it affect and make Joe feel since he will then be a team member short? This sounds like a long process. There is still one last component to consider. Lastly, I will determine the concentration of effect. Even though I would only be making the decision to terminate one associate, it would inadequately disadvantage my team during this transitional period for the company. But you must make a fair decision. Jane was altering her timesheet. There is no excusing this. I disagree, Mel. After analyzing the moral intensity approach, I think I will just seriously reprimand Jane and place her on a final warning, which will include an action plan that will address her tardiness and absences, and I will keep a close eye on her going forward.